I call this meeting to order at 6 p.m. on Monday, May 5th. Hopefully you guys are all here for the elections complaint hearing again. I'm just gonna go through the rules again really quickly. If the complainant is not here, we will not consider your complaint. So you need to either have already sent me your statement or have a representative or be here yourself, otherwise we will not be hearing your complaint. Every party can call and examine any witnesses that they bring up. During complaints, the gallery should refrain from speaking. Only complainants, respondents, witnesses, and committee members should speak. And just so you know, the complainants will be sitting on my right side and respondents will be sitting on my left side, and the signs are there. Due to time, or we don't really have that much of a time constraint because we only have a few complaints left to hear, but once again, try to stick to the point, try to keep it brief. And we will not be issuing judgments during the hearing. You will all find out a few days later. We don't really have a set date yet, but that will be publicly announced at the board of directors meeting on a Thursday, and it will also be sent to you at some point. And then when we conclude the hearing today, we will not be taking in any additional evidence because at that point we will be going into executive session. Okay, and then the procedure again, I will call up each complaint. I will do roll call. Complainant will do their opening statement. Respondent will do their opening statement. We'll do witnesses and evidence for each, and then a closing statement. First complainant, respondent, and the complainant can do a brief rebuttal. That is it. Yes.
How do you want the folks online to participate?
Forgot about Zoom. So today we have a Zoom meeting and not a Zoom webinar. So technically anyone can speak, but you can't actually just speak like that. So if you are up or if you want to speak for a complaint, please message in the chat, and Coop over here will keep an eye on that, and then we'll like give you a time to speak. Okay. So we will kind of figure that out as we go. Is the Zoom recording now?
Yes, we are recording.
Okay, perfect. We will just get started right away. We'll be hearing the first complaint of the evening, which is named 4/28/2025, Yeman versus ASUW Elections Administration Committee number 1. So it's the first complaint in that regard. Clarify which one that is, because all we have was number 1 and what's number 2. Yeah. So the ballot one, and then I will screen share. And then can I ask ballot traffic to come up with Emma? Yeah. Thank you. Okay, I'm just gonna start screen sharing so everyone can see the evidence. Yeah, okay. And then you guys let me know. Yeah. But first we're doing opening statements. So we will start with the complainant's opening statement. Do you want our names first? Oh yes, sorry, roll call. I'm being terrible right now. Do we have Damon here? Yeah. Do we have the EAC here? Present. Perfect. Yeah. You can do your opening statement. Oh, okay, thank you so much for having us. I would just like to start by clarifying a few things. First of all, by submitting this complaint, we as Washburn are not looking for Francisco or Rita to receive any community service time or anything like that. We are looking to create a dialogue about amending the rules and procedures around ballot measures for future ASUW elections. I would also like to clarify some context behind our first post statement that we put in for our actual complaint. This was drafted by a few other Washburn officers, so some of it is incorrect. I was not notified minutes before the post statement was due. What happened instead was that I incorrectly submitted the ballot measure question doubly as the post statement, and then was contacted on March 5th by someone from ASUW saying that they did not know my post statement and that they needed confirmation. So that was the minutes before portion. It was right before they were about to approve the post statement and that they did not have one. I, due to my personal connection to that ASUW member, because they also did not have my email as ballot measure advocate, was able to submit the correct post statement to her and get that processed. I then followed that up with Francisco, submitted the post statement, which is one of the pieces of evidence that I have. I introduced myself, made it clear what the post statement was, and then asked if he had any questions, confirmation of any sort that he needed, and then got a response saying, "Don't worry, Julia, I received this earlier. I'll handle it." Basically implying to me that the post statement was going to be taken care of. I then went on to worry about other things. This was, at a period of time where I had a lot of tasks and I had to start organizing for the elections in the future. However,
the pro statement was incorrect on the actual voter's guide. It was just a repeat of the ballot measure question. Our main complaint with that is, since this election, the election results regarding our ballot measure were rather thin, it was 158 votes that separated pro and con. We believe that this could have made a difference. People who were looking for an explanation or a pro statement regarding our ballot measure would have gone to see the pro statement and just seen a repeating. I think the key thing that makes it different is the correct pro statement, which I don't know if you'll bring that up, if you could bring that up.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Is this what you said in your email?
Yes, yeah. So if you read the correct pro statement over there, it says collect voluntary donations from students when they register for class. That section, register for classes, is key. When we tell people, when we're out there getting people to vote for the ballot measure, when we say registering for classes, people immediately know what the STAR system is because they do it all the time, right? That key piece of context is missing from the ballot measure, and it is not something that people were able to look up with the correct pro statement. That way, instead of people thinking that they're mandatorily giving $5, they know the system, they know how much money they're giving, and they know how they're doing it. The second part of our complaint centers on some rules that I believe were consistently more geared towards candidates than they were for ballot measure advocates. The reason why I put these two together is because I believe that the process surrounding the ASUW elections was simply not prepared for a ballot measure or a ballot measure advocate. Different rules that I stated in the complaint were, for example, Section 6 mentions that candidates and ballot measure advocates are not allowed to campaign inside of UW buildings without the permission of a building supervisor. I have the rule quoted. The reason why I had to go and clarify this with Francisco, which Francisco saw, I think, way too much with me, was because I wanted to clarify whether or not we could campaign for our own ballot measure at our own club meeting. Those happen inside of UW buildings. Would I then need the supervision of whoever was like the supervisor of the building? Would I need approval, or could I just do that at our own club meetings? Or, for example, Sections 8, along with 6 and 7, talk about rules that could have significantly impacted Washburn's operations. For example, it said that ballot measure advocates and their affiliates, which could easily be interpreted as Washburn as a whole, were not allowed to exceed $50 in spending over the course of the campaign. Now, Francisco very kindly interpreted this to just campaign expenditures for election purposes, but I believe that you could easily look at that rule and say that Washburn was not allowed to spend more than $50 for the month leading up to the election, or that Washburn as a whole was not allowed to table within 100 feet of the hub or 100 feet of election ballot sections, which would have significantly impacted our operations and our tabling. We would have had to cancel full events if that was the case. Francisco was very reasonable with this, but I believe that it shouldn't be up to an individual. It should be written into the rules. So one of our goals with this proceedings is for us to work hand in hand to redraft a lot of these rules to be better for campaign advocates and ballot measure advocates in the future. So that if we, for whatever reason, someone with a ballot measure doesn't have someone as reasonable as Francisco in the future, this isn't something that they suffer from.
Yeah, thank you so much. Do we have an opening statement from our respondents now?
Yeah. So I do think this was kind of like a sense of communication, like between both of us, because we did see the 4 statements that Julia sent in. But like how it did look fairly similar to the question that was being brought on the ballot, which we were provided by like a board bill. It was like a board bill, like requested that the question be brought on the ballot on behalf. And when I did receive that email saying that this is the full statement, I would generally say that, oh, I didn't see I didn't compare both the statements that I received from the 4 statement that I received when we were filing as a ballot measure advocate and the one that I received via email, and that definitely led to some confusion. And I think the question about the pro statement and the con statements during that time was a bit confusing for kind of everyone involved. So I see the point of like trying to make this more of a streamlined process. Because like when I came to the Judicial Committee to have like a con statement on this case, like you guys just did the final, which is okay. But there was kind of confusion about like if you guys were to fight in the first place. So I think that there is credit to say like we should have more discussions about what rules surround like ballot advocates when it comes to the elections process, because our policies definitely are more catered to candidates. So I do think that we were provided the technically correct statement when you guys were filing or as a ballot measure advocate. But if we had a bit in better communication, would have like possibly been able to accommodate whatever new question or statement.
Yeah, thank you. I think okay. We're gonna go back to the complainants now. Is there any additional? Is there any additional like evidence or witnesses you guys want to bring up?
Well,
Right now,
I
or
just
something
wanna-
I didn't show that you show?
Oh, are we making rebuttals now or?
No, like in terms of the evidence.
I think it's just, just to show that the 2 emails that I sent, the first one to the person on ASUW that I know is Zoe. Zoe Salianides. If you look at the dates, I emailed her and then I immediately emailed Francisco because I understood the second that this became like aware to me that it was wrong, I immediately worked to fix it. And that was March 5th, which I don't even think was, correct me if I'm wrong, not even within the campaigning period yet. Was it? Never mind. But rather early.
Okay, thank you. Any additional evidence from our respondents or witnesses you guys would like to bring up?
Well, I say this, and I do not want to just be very mean about it. Just I think it's like, we did attend the voter guide pretty early this year, and we would have loved it if you just saw it and you could just come back to us like, oh, this was the issues and we could have fixed it. I'm not saying that it was your fault. It was our fault. We approved you guys communication, but it's just something. But yeah.
Yeah, okay. We'll do closing statement now, so we'll start with the minutes.
So I
Or
think
wait, sorry.
questions, correct? Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure, I just missed this, but you guys did get the correct statement into EAC before the original stated deadline.
I believe so. The second that Zoe made me aware that it was incorrect, I immediately sent her the correct statement. That was within like a minute after she told me. And in my mind, based on our conversation that I had with her, which I could submit the text messages, but I don't want to make them public record. So
We have the email.
perfect. So as soon as I was aware, I emailed her the correct statement. And from my understanding of the conversation, the Judicial Committee was actively going over the pro and the con statements.
I don't all see posted, but we were asked to write a con statement and we decided not to write.
I had heard that too. I believe she had come to me and asked me if I would write a con statement, and I told her I would not write a con statement for my own ballot measure.
Yeah, no, we didn't. We agreed. Like it was a unanimous decision. We decided not to write a con statement as well.
But again, that's my understanding. I actually don't know the timeline. I just know that the pro statement was missing, and the second that she made me informed that it was missing, I sent it to her immediately, and then immediately followed it up by sending it to Francisco.
Yeah.
So
I'm still sure there was like a deadline by which candidates had to submit a first statement, right?
Yes, and
Or
as
ballot.
yeah, ballot measure advocates have the same final deadline as candidates. So the statement that we received was for Julie as a ballot measure advocate, saying that this is my statement on behalf of the ballot.
And but the corrected statement, did that get to you before the?
That came after the filing period.
Mhm.
But before the printing of the works.
Okay, I also had kind of like a follow-up question. Rhea, you mentioned that like you guys printed the voters guide really early this year, which like I'm aware of. But I was wondering, when was the voters guide like publicly available? Like, do you have a
We
date?
printed it on March 10th. And it's been around because
Because you guys also have.
so it would have been open,
Yeah.
we would have received it by that Friday, so.
March 15th. March.
Okay, so like before spring break. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify that. Do you have any other questions? Maybe? Okay, now we'll do this.
So I just want to bring up a slight point that Francisco made just now. It wasn't just that it was quite similar, it was the exact same verbatim text in between both the ballot measure and what was printed as the pro statement. So that's one of those things that I think that if you were to stop and look at it, you might realize that there was a mistake. On top of that, I know that it was something that was public for a very long period of time, but because quite frankly, I had to worry so much about these other rules, I read this EPP like front to back. I have a 30-page long notes document that I can give you guys about it because I was so concerned that we were going to accidentally violate rules because the rules were not made for us. They were made for candidates. To the point that I had to, Emma can testify, I trained everybody in Washburn numerous times in all of our meetings about all the different ways that they could interact with voters to make sure that we weren't, accidentally covering behind people while they were voting or getting too close to an election voting area, right? Because of that, this pro statement was not at the forefront of my mind. I was not focused on the pro statement being correct. or, you know, was focused on the endorsements or everything else. And because Francisco told me not to worry about it, quite frankly, I did. So that.
And we do acknowledge on our part, it would be smart in the future, we'll double check.
Yeah,
But
but it's just simply, especially since it has been, I think, 10 years since Washburn has gone through this process. And is no one currently in the club who has gone through it again. I really put it on myself to focus on all of the other rules in the EPP to make sure we weren't violating anything else.
Yeah, that makes sense. Any closing statement from our respondent?
Yeah, it is regrettable that that's what happened. We do acknowledge that that the EPP is like more catered to candidates, and like we are so open to working with you guys and like making sure that there is equity when it comes to ballot initiative advocates, because it's always like it's an evolving document. We need to make sure that actually like sadly sometimes these things happen. Like we try to measure it so that it doesn't happen again in the future. As for the question itself or the statement itself, I did see it like, oh, they submitted kind of the same thing, which I felt odd, but it's not our responsibility to like check in on these kind of things. Like we add to the ballot or voters guide, like whatever is sent to us. Like we don't want to change verbiage, and we just put on the voters guide and click on like what we were sent. So that was unfortunate, but yeah. Everything.
Yeah, I just want to admit that this was miscommunication, and I'll apologize for whatever you guys have been through. I know it's something that was your baby, and I'm really sorry that I turned out. And we're gonna write in a published document that ASU will definitely work with Washburn to fix the ballot, all the ballot issues that you faced this year, so that this doesn't happen again.
Any closing, brief rebuttal remarks?
No, yeah, I just think, I mean, this means a lot to us. This is like our entire funding source for a club that's been on campus for the last 50 years. It's the oldest student activism organization in the state of Washington. So it's sad to see us lose that funding system. And it's more disheartening that it was done by such a slim margin when there were certain rules and procedures that didn't feel as if they were good towards us. So I'm happy that you guys are open to working with us in the future.
Oh, okay, thank you everyone for going through that complaint. Thank you everyone being respectful. We'll be moving on now to the next complaint, which is we'll be moving on to the next complaint, which is named 4/28/2025 Selden versus Nesma JD, Sonalberg, Owen Rivera, and Ashwin Anand. Do we have our complainant here or their representative? Yeah. And then I'm just gonna do a roll call really quick. Do we have Selden's representative here? Can we just state your name? No, yeah, my first. Awesome. And then do we have Nandana here? Here. Do we have Sonal
Here.
on Zoom? Perfect.
Sonal's on Zoom.
And then do we have Owen on Zoom?
Who?
Owen Rivera.
No, they're not on Zoom.
And then Ashwin. Perfect. Okay, we're gonna start with the complainant's opening statement. Yeah, so that's just my perspective of Project Selden. So my name is Riley Selden, and I'm submitting this testimony regarding violations of limits by members of the Muskegon Mountain Ticket and ASUW election group. On Wednesday of the voting week, I saw 4 members of the Muskegon Mountain Ticket holding us actively campaigning in voter guard night. They had Muskegon Down poster displayed on the table according to the election rules about candidates were permitted to engage in our election promotion in the library. They were not allowed to endorse a specific candidate or ticket. The presence of a poster directly referencing their ticket is a clear violation of stat rule. In addition to the improper signage, I personally observed and multiple friends can corroborate that these individuals left their designated table to speak with other students throughout the library. This was after they had already been informed that they were only allowed to campaign from their assigned location. While it may be true that Order Guard library staff did not intervene, I believe that candidates have a responsibility to uphold the integrity of their regardless of enforcement by external parties.
Thank you for your time and attention to this fact.
Thank you for reading that statement. Now we're gonna hear our respondents of the statement.
Okay, so I can break that down like line by line, maybe. So we're talking about, thank you so much. Okay, so on Wednesday voting week, we did acquire written permission to take one out of our library, and in the written permission, I submitted already as evidence. We did say that we can use computer materials. So all we had was our sign, and we had candies, not just for anyone who voted for us, just for anyone who walked in and who talked to us about elections or anything in general. So we were allowed to use campaign materials, and I'd like to clarify that. And we, in talking to, after we were told not to go around to table at Odegaard Library, none of the members on my ticket did that. We were at our table the entire time, and sorry not to throw you out, but like Brennan was there and he was at our table for a long time. We were talking. There was a lot of people that came up to our table, but we did not engage in table to table campaign after we were made aware that we can set up a table. And I think that answers all.
Okay. Now we're moving on back to like, do you have any additional comments or pieces that
I mean, it ties into the content I was looking for, but on Wednesday last week. But yeah, essentially we did get a letter from the administration of Odegaard, essentially saying that, so something that they weren't happy with, was already been submitted as evidence, and I just find it a bit contradictory considering that, last week I remember responding saying that they were allowed to use obviously then video campaigns. So it makes me a little bit unsure as to why that's like switched around now. And it also, as a witness in the last complaint, I talked about how I was speaking to the staff member who scared the Husky cards, and he even told me that they were asked to leave because they realized that they were thinking not just there to drink what they were basically to be as originally agreed upon. And I think that was again the main respondent's argument last time. So yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Do we have any additional evidence or witnesses from the respondent?
Can I call Rhea to reach as a witness?
Yeah, you can call Brian. Yeah, come join us.
I just want to say that as someone that checked, I cannot confirm or deny if they were walking around. I cannot confirm or deny if they were walking around Odegaard because I was not in part of three, but for the brief period when Peyton brought to my attention that they were still campaigning in Odegaard, I went there to check if it was within the EVP bounds, and they said that they can use campaign materials, so I don't think that that's the full time staff there.
Okay, the staff at Odegaard Library. Yes.
Like our messaging didn't, our per se on all of the stuff about this kind of thing. It's that again we had our gesture on the table. We set up the table in front of the person that signed our signature, so like we were allowed to have a poster there. Even then we didn't leave our designated area. I mean, our designated area was right in front of the line to which like, I mean, you can see it, all the staff could see it. We weren't leaving our area. We even did like rotations on people coming in, coming out. We went to get something front at some point, so that was like not covered. Yeah, we were just saying, you know, vote for piece of candy, vote for anybody for piece of candy. Just talk for piece of candy.
Yeah, so the campaign materials were like allowed according to the permission that we got, and like Ashwin said, we did set up our table right in front of the people who stand like the Husky card and the people who like sit behind like the laptop, desktop. So if we were always within their presence and their view, and so we weren't allowed to get up and walk around, and we wouldn't have been able to, and we didn't. And like I said, like only people we were talking to were people that came up to our table, like when we came up to our table and talked for like an hour, and we did rotate in and out. So
yeah, thank you. Now we'll be hearing our closing statement from our complainant. Yes, questions.
Yeah, so I just want to clarify, are you alleging that they worked off their table on day 3? Like moving around in the library?
yes, that's what's right. I think that.
So Riley. Yeah, because I just want to clarify. So,
Yeah, the full complaint is for. Oh, okay.
Okay.
So it is.
and then, were there any photos of that this time? No.
Yeah, there was people in that.
So that's my question.
And this is what questions from the committee, Brian?
Just to clarify, since it has been some time, do you remember when exactly this written consent was signed?
Yeah, I'm trying to think. There's probably a timestamp on the video. Early in the morning, was definitely when we got the permission because rough estimate about 10 a.m. 10 to 11 a.m. was about when we got the signature. In addition to that, just side comment, did I see the picture that was submitted of us walking?
Okay. Oh,
Is that,
they keep doing out. Sorry, that's one picture. Okay, never mind.
sorry, is that
That's
Owen there? in the
Yeah, that's
checkered shirt?
Owen in the checkered and
And-
me in the.
Is Owen the one who's supposed to be like walking around the open center?
I believe she just said members. Okay, sorry, we're not gonna have the gallery speak. Sorry, do you want to repeat your question, Dylan?
Yeah, I can't clarify. So, is Owen the one who is supposedly like walking away from the table in this picture?
In the statement, it just something that there's a bit to do. Individuals, yeah, it just says these individuals that they're designated. Yeah, okay, any additional questions? Okay, any other questions from the committee? Okay, now we're gonna hear a closing statement from our complainant. Sorry about that. Yeah, once again, we'd just like to emphasize the difference in responses from last time. Last time, the main basis for arguing that they were not campaigning for the individual platforms, which again, which we had a rebuttal with about the poster and everything. She was all remember. And yeah, also would like to reference my the letter that I got from the administration of Odegaard, Emily R. I forget her last name fully. If you guys remember, or if they remember the name of the admin that they had got the permission from, that would be good. But last time, if from my memory, I remember it was like the same person. But ours was from the Monday after elections. So that's more recent, and it was a type signed letter rather than like a piece of paper with like mark on it. It's like proving that it's yours. And I think that if you want to, since it's a bit contradictory from the same person, you can reach out to Emily and see what she has to say about it because it's really contradictory. She said it's just. And yeah, the 4 people that Riley mentioned that of her friends that can corroborate for this, I'm sure that they would be willing, if you guys want to reach out to them, they would be willing to testify to it. Even a friend of mine had told me that they were asking them like who they voted for, and you can also call them up, but so. Okay, thank you. Yeah, any business statements non-responding? Okay, so going back to the fact that this complaint is about us tabling at Odegaard on Wednesday. So we did have permission, and when going back to the letter that was signed, I'm pretty sure off just off of my memory that we followed all of the rules that were said in the letter, which said that we need permission from the supervisor to table and campaign for elections in general, which is exactly what we did. And we also were told that we were able to use campaign materials. So we had our poster up, but that doesn't necessarily equate to like campaigning for our ticket because we were allowed to have our campaign materials as long as we didn't like make sure that we gave candy to everyone who voted and not just the people who voted for us. And yeah, and also in terms of like the evidence that was submitted, I just had a question. Is that like the only picture? It was. Okay, so I just want to say that Ashwin and Owen were at Odegaard at our table at that time, and the rest of our ticket was in fact in the quad. So the only people who were at Odegaard at the time were Ashwin and Owen, and they, as far as I can see, were not leaving the table and were just talking to people at our table. So that's all I got. If you want to
Yeah, just another quick clarification. So I was the person that contacted Miss Rudder to get the signed signature because she was like, on the library staff or whatever. So she's the one that signed, their letter and our, written letter. We have video for signing it. I don't know if there's any that we need that she had, or that we had her perfect people to do it. But yeah, honestly, we agreed with her. It was just like vote for piece, talk to us for piece of thing. It's as simple as that. It was pretty quickly. So I just wanted to talk through that. That's about it.
Okay, any last rebuttal? Yeah, just would also like to emphasize that, considering that the permission was given for the third day, that there was this permission on the other 2 days. And I do remember them saying that they had asked the staff, but these explicit on the site has to be able to supervise. So, yeah, thank you, everyone. We'll be moving on from this complaint. Thank you. We'll now be hearing the next complaint, which is named 4/28/2025, Yemen versus ASUW Elections Administration Committee 2. So I believe this is the one regarding the voting objectives. Right.
I just want to clear on the first one.
It was the only one that like almost, it was
Yeah.
like, we figured out. Okay, let me pull up this. Okay, just for roll call really quick, do we have Damon here or Foxbury? Okay, and then do we have the? Awesome, now we will be hearing our opening statement from our consultant. Thank you.
Again, I just want to clarify that this complaint is not saying that any individual students violated any rule, and we're not looking for any students to get community service. Again, we're just trying to create a conversation where we can create more clear and stricter rules in the EPP that are going to ensure that future elections are more fair. Because we were mostly concerned about a potential disconnect between student volunteers with ASUW at the polling booths and the administration who were responsible for overseeing the process of voter incentivization. So, as I'm sure you're aware, the UW allowed student government officials to offer voter incentives. Those included the 20% off gift coupon to the bookstore, coupon for free bowling, $1 ice cream, goodie bags, chip bags, all that fun stuff. And those incentives serve as one of the primary strategies for taught to volunteers to incentivize students to vote in the campus election and help lead to the highest voter turnout since 2015, which is great. And on campus, students were promoting the election at ASUW polling booths by approaching students and asking questions like, do you want free stuff? Do you want a free tote bag? Do you want coupons? And then following up by saying, there's an ASUW election happening right now, you should vote. And that wording was happening again at polling locations that as the VP candidates and ballot measure advocates could not be within 100 feet of campaigning or educating voters about their own initiatives. And to clarify, Washburn is 100% behind encouraging civic engagement on campus for students. That's been our top priority for all 50 years that we've been at UW. However, we are concerned with the process by which student voters were incentivized this year during the election did not promote voter education like it was intended to. We say that again because student volunteers were specifically asking students if they wanted free stuff and not emphasizing the voter education materials that candidates and ballot advocates were told that they would be promoting. I don't know if you got it, but today I emailed a screenshot to you. I did to the ASUW GB email. Okay, no, sorry. But it was a screenshot posted by the ASUW Elections Committee on March 31st, which just stated that students could approach the ASUW booths during the election voting period and ask questions about the election in order to receive one coupon of the multiple that they listed. But in reality, again, students were being told that they could receive any prize, and also were just firsthand being promoted, or like they're promoting the incentives first rather than letting students approach them for questions about voting.
We're being told that they could receive multiple prizes. When I went up to the booth and said that I had voted and I wanted to claim a prize, people, it was towards the end of the day on Wednesday, they were like, oh, we're just getting rid of it, take like 5 coupons.
And similar to that Instagram post was later accompanied by a campus-wide email sent by the ASUW president about the voter incentives, which was less specific, but again, just listed all the incentives and said, if you vote, you can get them. And I only bring that up just to highlight the discrepancies in how voter incentives were advertised to all students, which created confusion on the ballot measure side and potentially on candidates as well who were trying to create their campaign plans for that 3-day period. And again, Washburn is very supportive of offering prizes to students to vote. We want to encourage students to be civically engaged on campus. However, based on the posts that we saw and the emails we received, and our experiences just being around on campus near those polling locations, we are under the impression that the polling booths were primarily advertising those prizes rather than offering the voter education materials that students were needed. And even if students were provided the voter's guide, again, our pro statement was accurate. So that just kind of further exacerbated the fact that students weren't going to be properly educated about our ballot measure. And last little thing is we would just like to know the specific section of the EPP that outlines ASUW's ability or the rules around them offering voter incentives. I read through it and I didn't see the word incentive. I did see the section on subcommittees that said that the voter education subcommittee could work with ASUW entities to advertise prior and during the campaign/election period, providing voter education resources and reaching out to students to vote. And again, we agree with that statement. We just don't think that the actual process that students were incentivized to vote followed that rules and like outline. And so we believe that volunteers weren't properly trained in the way that would allow for a fair election. And so we're just seeking to, going forward, amend this process or just make more clear rules so that in the future elections could be more fair, and candidates and ballot measure advocates are more aware of how votes can.
And to add on, we believe that this negatively affected everybody on the playing field, because if you're told if you vote, you can receive a free tote bag, a coupon, gift card, whatever, and you're uneducated as to the candidates, my first reaction to that is people are going to pick random candidates to receive incentives. And I believe thoroughly that that is not what ASUW intended at all, and that is an issue. And so it's one of those things where we're not making this complaint because we think it negatively impacted just our ballot measure. We believe it impacted every single person running in the ASUW election, the way that these incentives were advertised. Thank you. Now we're going to be moving on to the respondents for their own.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up. I understand where you guys come from, but I first want to mention that I'm really proud of the numbers that we got this year. My team played me and Frisco were working for like 30 hours for the last 3 days for the election period, and I'm really happy with the turnout. I just want to say that we personally don't think that we violated any EPP or US code, and I have like testimonies from my volunteers and also Brendan Elliott from OGR. So I just want to make sure that first of all, we did not spend any money. So they stated that no, in the EPP that they mentioned the complaint, no candidate affiliate, campaign manager, ballot measure advocate, or ballot measure advocate affiliate may directly or indirectly offer any bribe, reward, or anything of a fair market value greater than $1 to vote in any attempt to change or persuade any student's voting decision. It does not apply to EAC in itself, and even then, all those were donations given to us by UW entities, which we kind of like reached out to like solidify our relationships with XFS, Hub Bowling, and also Bookstore. Also, I agree that we at the end of the elections we gave out a lot of coupons because we had them, and if there's no point of us storing those coupons, if it can benefit people, like I don't think what we did was wrong there. Like if people came and were like, okay, take the coupons, we don't have any use of it in ourselves. So that was the thing. And also we did mention, this was a screenshot, we mentioned the voter incentives on March 31st. It was way before the election started. It got, I think, 9,500 views. So the idea that candidates or ballot measures were not educated about that, it does not state in DPP that we have to notify any candidate or ballot measure about any vote incentives that we're going to have. But I try to make sure that we speak about that in every forum, including the Senate forum, where someone from Washington was present. I don't know who that was, but someone was present there. So I try to make sure that we have that there. Also, the email that they have referenced Naomi's email. We gave her a blurb, and I can read out the blurb that we gave her. We did not mention the word voter incentive at all. I can send that for a screenshot, but, we just mentioned that Naomi, can you mention you Dubs as well in the ASUW flare, fair alert that she's going to post in the elections below mentioned that if you come to the top 121 during the election period, or one of our polling booths, you can get 1 out of 3 coupons, and just the coupons, and thank you. Also, yes, we reached out to more, we were not, we didn't specify the policy that, oh, if people come to us, that's when we're gonna engage them in like full voting process. We did reach out to people, we did ask them, hey, come, but I don't think that was something that violated EPP itself. And also, I can tell you a lot of people really read through the voters guide. We had a group of people at least 3 or 4 times a day that sat beside a voting booth. They read through the EPP, made notes of what they want to do, and I understand there was an issue with the EPP about Washburg's ballot measure, but there were a lot of people that read through the voters guide, that they made informed students. We ran through all our voter guide materials that we had, and we had different pamphlets with online voter guides, and we ran through almost all of them. I think people were making really, like they were sitting and making decisions for themselves. Can I agree that some people did not? Some people just voted for the coupons, yes, but that was not the intention, and that's not what I saw happening when I was tabling at least. People were trying to read through the voters guide, they were trying to do that as well. But yeah, you want to add something?
No, those were excellent. So.
Okay, thank you. Now we're gonna go back to the complainants. Do you guys have any additional evidence or witnesses? I know you sent me that email, and I will upload that later.
We also have 2 it.
Okay, yeah, you can. Maybe one more time or maybe more seconds. If you guys are okay with me, I'm sorry. Okay, yeah, you can start.
Okay, so basically in our time, Em and I, we were walking in the hub area and there was a big booth for ASUW.
Wait, sorry, pause.
So let me say my
Do
name.
you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, okay. My name's Alina. You can say last name as well.
Or just like, or okay, that's fine, yeah.
No, just my name's Alina and I'm just part of one student. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, I'll start now. Basically, Em and I were walking around the hub and there was the booth for ASUW. Basically, this girl came out of like the little booth area and basically said like, does anybody want free stuff? Like rather than like incentivizing like, does anybody want to vote? They rather just said, anybody want free stuff? And then when people started like huddling over there, instead of like educating voters, basically she was like inviting people to just get free stuff to just vote. So like there was EAC booklets there. But like where they offered is very questionable because kids were just going up there and was not like just voting for like a 20% off coupon or just like a water bottle or some bubbles. I think they were incentivizing like not educating voters.
Okay, thank you, yeah.
Hi, I'm Morgan, also a student. Wednesday, the last day of the election, I was outside the hub, like in the front area for about like an hour and a half. And while I was there, the ASUW like tent was set up outside. And the whole time I was there, very similar, they were incentivizing by saying, you know, who wants free stuff? Like there was literally like, I think 2 people there. And they're just like constantly walking around outside, like walking like up to people in their like vicinity. You know, do you want free stuff? Do you want free stuff? Do you want coupon? Like just that sort of thing. And then when people walk over to the table, they think, oh yeah, scan this. And like I know that one of my friends that was nearby, he was, oh, like what is that for? Like, are they just giving out free stuff for fun? Like, is that what our tuition's for? You know, like that sort of thing. And I was like, oh no, like it's for the election. Like, I'm sure he go over and ask or whatever, but you know, he went over and took free stuff and he got his free stuff, but very similar, like there wasn't, you know, like, oh, here, this is the voter guide, like look through this before you vote. Like it was kind of like do it now and get your thing, which brings up the issue, like we were saying. It could be that people are fully looking through all the stuff.
Yeah, thank you so much for the statements. Anything else you guys would like to say for evidence? Okay, awesome, thank you. Now we're gonna go
Baxter responded to it, any additional evidence or witnesses for that?
I just want to say that if we do agree to the rescue cameras, I personally just want to read my volunteers on my state, like their statement is, hello to all who are reading this. My name is Tyler and I volunteer for the ESC, which included a sense of giving you the week of voting. I tabled for 10 hours while voting was open in an attempt to achieve a high voter turnout. While tabling, myself and other volunteers handed out coupons, stickers, and other items to encourage people to stop by at our table. When people came to collect these items, we promoted active elections by spending points of voter directors and historians broadly. We did not at any point force people to vote in order to collect these items. They were distributed to anyone who stopped by our table regardless of voting status. We did not at any point verify voting status before handing out the items. Thank you for reading. And to be very honest, can I agree that at some points there were some hating against the items as well? I think that was at one point set to the sense that for me personally, I think I gave out coupons to people just that was sitting there. Like I remember I went to the RSS and I was like, hey guys, these are the coupons and also like what's happening. I gave it at a point that I want to put ASUW forward, and I think that happened a lot. Just because those coupons had ASUW logo, just kind of understand what ASUW is. It was not to a point that it would like our intention was not to influence the election in any sort of way. And also when it comes to voter education, it's not our responsibility to go through every single candidate and explain their platform to the voters guide. ESC can help them if they have issues with any of their ballots or like what election is, what board directors does and everything. It's not our job to make sure that students at one point you tell them like, okay, I'm campaigning for any candidates of ballot measures we have. We tell them, hey, so this is what's happening. These are what the ballot measures are. This is the voter guide that tell you everything. And we did. I can attest to that. We did give out a lot of voter guides. Every single time someone came up with a question, I was like, hey guys, read the voters guide. I'm going to tell you who to vote for. And please take your time to do that. A lot of people, literally, they were like, okay, let me do it right now, but let me take my time. They literally sat there for an hour doing it. Some people who stopped at the ASUW office sitting on the couches and reading through the voters guide, making an informed decision. A lot of people were like that. Like we can point out the minority and like, yes, there could be that reason. We agree to that. It's not a perfect system. We don't like doing this either. But something that needs to happen, and I'm very worried that if we are found guilty of that, that just sets a back precedent that ESC can't use voter incentives at all, and it would hinder ASUW being represented by more students.
Yeah, we did say whenever I was like a person doing tabling during the voting period, I was clear like we do not like to our volunteers. Like don't tell people to say like, oh, if you vote you get coupons, because that is maybe that's not something that's not incentivization to vote. We just want to tell students, hey, the elections are happening and we're giving up free stuff. But it's all about like telling students to vote. And we did have training for our volunteers. We had like whoever was going to be a poll worker during the voting period, we had them like read over our code of conduct as an elections ambassador, and we could send that to the committee to review. But we were clear that if we're not here to put the coupon, so like say you get free stuff, and if that did happen, that's our responsibility as the co-chair and the head of the committee to say, or been more clear about what our volunteers say when they do go poll working. But our incentivization was the elections themselves, like, but not our actual like coupons or anything.
Yeah, sorry. Also, they mentioned the U.S. code, which is hindered on private voters, which reads any voter who uses menace, any person who uses menace, force, threat, or any unlawful means towards any voter to hinder or deter such a voter from voting, or directly or indirectly offers any private voter anything of value to voter in exchange for the voter's vote, or anything for or against any person or ballot measure, or authorizes any person to do so is guilty. While it does not say about any bipartisan things, and there has been a long-standing precedent of voter incentivization. Last year, I think 3 times, it was available for every student, but they kind of had early access to people who had voted. So that's like something that worries me, that if we are found guilty, what does it say about the future of the ESC and the elections? It has already been happening in the past, and that's what we followed, and we tried to make elections more fun. That was what I brought to the table, and made sure that we interacted more in the departments and just give our students what they need.
Yeah, thank you. Before we do closing statements, is there any other? Yeah.
You said, or, you mentioned that you get people being offered multiple incentives. Could you clarify what the distinction is in your guys' eyes between someone offering like one coupon and like 2 or 3?
Yeah, so I think that part of the EPP that candidates and ballot measure advocates are held to is the idea of exchanging an incentive that's $1 or less, I believe, or anything related to fair market value. So like if we were donated something that was $1, we couldn't just like start, or $5, we can just start handing out as an incentive for people to vote. And I believe that if I'm given like 5 separate coupons, that is a greater than fair market value than $1. And I also think that it does offer a significantly greater incentive than if I was just given one coupon. And I think that it kind of adds on to the idea that potentially the volunteers either were not trained to the extent that they should have been, or that there wasn't severity surrounding like you should be clear that you're giving these incentives or rewards for voting and you're not just giving a coupon and being like, oh, by the way, vote. You know, I think that by just like throwing the coupons out at the end of the day, I think it adds a little bit more severity of it.
Yeah, I have a follow-up question. So typically the EPP, as I understand it, states that you can't offer someone something to get them to vote, right? So it would have been a violation if EAC had their volunteers say, if you vote, we will give you this. Are you alleging that EAC volunteers were doing that?
I do want to comment, just also, I'll clarify this in the closing statement as well. I guess we're not necessarily saying that any individual or like the EAC themselves violated any part of PPP. We are more so concerned with how the process of the voter incentivization happened, because we are all for like increasing civic engagement on campus, and we think that offering prizes for voting is a great way to do that. Just the process by which it was done wasn't promoting voter education. And at least in my experience, when I was approached by the people at those polling locations, it was very clearly, have you voted? If so, then you can take anything that you want at this table. And I brought up the differences in how voter incentives were advertised, because they created some confusion into whether or not they were offering them for voting, or if they're offering them to encourage people to check out their booth, or if it was just one item versus any item.
That's great. And I also just want to make it clear that I don't think any of us would say that the EVP is a perfect document. It's never evolving document. And we came into this hearing with the idea that we don't want them to get punished with community service. That's not what we're looking for at the end of the day. What we're looking for is a conversation for us to further have more clarity on the incentives, further have more training for the volunteers. We're all for civic engagement. It's what our organization is founded upon. So I just think that there needs to be more clarity within the EPP, that certain sections should be rewritten, and that it should be more clear how incentives are offered to students.
Good, thank you. Any other questions? Oh, okay.
For yeah, I just want to clarify, you or several times mentioned that your primary concern is people are not adequately informed about the elections, but just to clarify, you're not saying that anyone was going up to these tables receiving a reward and at no point being told about the elections, right? That's not something you're alleging.
No, just maybe being offered the incentives with as if the prizes were means to an end, with the end being just voting to get the numbers up, rather than using the incentives to invite them into the table and then spending time to say, you should vote, here are voter guides where you can educate yourself about the election. We know no volunteer or the EAC are not responsible for going through every single candidate, every single ballot measure, but actually just offering the voter's guide and saying that that is the best resource that students have to educate themselves about how to vote in an informed manner, just based on our witness accounts and what we also saw ourselves. We just don't think that that's actually how the incentives are being used, and so that's where our concern.
And I think there's a pretty big difference between having an informed student body and having a high voter turnout.
We'll do closing statements. Oh, okay, yeah.
I'm not sure we gave them the words guide that had all the information. We can make them we can lecture them on what this candidate does or what this ballot question does. Other things starts and stops that we give them a list. We tell them what ASUW does. What are some of the things that are on the ballot? And that's what I told my interns and volunteers, and that was happening, but especially when I was educated, they were asking, what is this, or what is ASUW do? And we literally talked, like, ASUW has $1.7 million budget. They have so much of reserves. They impact. I talked about youth aspects. That's something that impacted me. I had so many conversations with people about voting, and I personally told my volunteers that maybe sometimes it's not perfect. There's a lot of things happening. It's election year. It's not perfect. I agree. Things need to change. I do agree, and I absolutely appreciate that. And absolutely welcome, especially for next year's to like work with Washburn and figure out a system. But I don't think that EAC at any point violated any rules, because first of all, EAC is not bound by the dollar. I think it's all candidates. It's not about EAC. And let's look at New York Times. It was 27. It's way above $1 thing for us. Yes, there could be, like, we can argue a lot of those things, but like our role, and we can educate them if they don't want to be educated. We give them the resources. We give voters the resources. They don't want to be educated. It's at that point not our fault. We give them all the avenues to do that. So yes, I agree that we had a high voter turnout, and that was our goal. We also a higher educated population, and I thought we did that. So yeah.
Okay, thanks. Any other questions? Yeah.
Yeah. I just like to with what Mia said, and I will say, like, all of coupons. Do you guys have physical copies? I can give you the map, but like,
I think we've all seen
or
it.
sourced.
Yeah.
Okay, but yeah, they all had like information, like it's not just like what we voted at FASC or the bookstore. It had so the purpose of why we were giving out these coupons. So the elections are happening. Like, go to the ASUW website, learn more about voting, access voter resources. And so like there was that sense that we gave the opportunity for students to vote at the elections once they received the coupon. And again, like, turnout was important to us, but also education. So like having that intact was, so we do believe that we were legally capable of giving out these coupons and all these incentives.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Okay, awesome. Now we're gonna hear our complainants.
Yeah, I guess I just want to clarify, we're not trying to say that the EC valid anything. We don't want to be punished. We're not, that's not our goal. And I do think maybe the language in our may have like been misleading in terms of saying that we think that EAC violated any certain rules. I think we just highlighted those sections to highlight flaws in the process of voter incentivization. And again, our goal is just to create that dialogue so we can create more clear rules in EPP so that in future elections, the way in which voters are going to be incentivized is more clear. But then on some points that Rhea brought up, again, we're not concerned that we weren't properly informed about the incentives. We know that we were. I mostly brought up the inconsistencies in how we were informed about the voter incentives, just to highlight that we and other students may have been confused about the purpose of the incentives, and that can impact how ballot measure advocates and candidates are going to plan their campaigns for that 3-day period, especially when we know we can't be anywhere in the booths when we're trying to educate voters about our own initiatives. And I do think there's a difference between voter guides being at a table versus encouraging students to look at them, or using voter incentives to bring them to the table to then offer those educational resources. We know that our witnesses and our own accounts don't fully capture the extent to which students were maybe had conversations with ASUW volunteers in a way that didn't encourage voter education for the different experiences. So we're not going to know the true extent of maybe where some of these pitfalls came into play in the election results, but we just think that the fact that it happened at all, and the fact that there is that lack of oversight over how student volunteers are either being trained or using their training to incentivize student voters. We just want to make sure that in the future, that process is a bit more clear and structured so that we know that students are all receiving the same sort of education about how to vote and work.
Yeah, I would also like to say that quite a few of these races were decided by a rather slim margin. You know, like not significant number of votes in between a lot of the candidates. I think that, you know, when, bless you, when Maria was at the table, you mentioned that your volunteers were, you know, following incentives from voter guides. That's great. But we have witnesses such as Lauren, who was there for an hour, who said that what people were being approached with was, do you want a free coupon? Not, do you want to go to the ASUW election? Do you know about the ASUW election? The immediate thing that was said to them is, do you want to vote for a coupon? And I believe, me personally, I worked very hard to make sure that our volunteers were incredibly trained with what they could say to people in public, incredibly trained with how you could handle ballots to make sure that we weren't violating any rules. We had a 100-foot string of rope that I had at our table to make I would walk around with if I thought a volunteer was too close to an elections table. I was very clear in making sure that people were following the rules. And I think that these rules should be workshopped and written to the EPP and made clear to candidates, ballot measure advocates, and their affiliates in the future so that we are on the same footing and in the same awareness as those in the EAC are.
Thank you. Now we're going to be hearing a closing statement from our respondent.
I agree. EPP is an updating document. We update it every single year with what happened last year. Like this year, we have to do a complete overhaul about a lot of those things. So I agree that it should be done, and we should actually write a clear way of how we want to do incentives. And I'm absolutely open to recommend that next year's EAC. I just want to, so yeah, we should probably wait about that. That's going to happen. I really believe that we trained our volunteers correctly, and I think they all had, especially the ones that were there for like the longest period, especially I saw them review what they. So I'm not sure where that happened. Also, the question that they were given multiple coupons, I can tell you what the thought process was. We had 7,000 coupons from cars, 7,000 store, but only 2,000 cupcakes. I was worried that if we give out all 3 coupons, let's say that we would give out all 3 coupons, we may not have coupons for every. That's what I was worried about for the cupcakes one. Once the first day the election went through, we realized we have a lot of coupons. So why not give it to people who wanted all these coupons? That's why a lot of people got 3 coupons, because I personally didn't see any benefit of just hoarding them. So I was like, give it out to people. I gave out to people who were not even students. Then someone came and they were like, can I have a free classy coupon? I was like, sure. My point was to get the word across for ASUW, and that's what the is for. Things are always changing. We're always making sure our systems are efficient. We are working towards auditing ourselves. This like literally last meeting on Friday, we're having a financial audit, how everything works. So yes, we're gonna implement those changes and make sure it's more concise. But I don't think our substance was the issue. But yeah, thank you so much for bringing that up, by the way, and we'll make sure that happens for next year.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Very last final remarks for you guys.
I think we agree with more than what we disagree.
Okay, yeah, thank you. Okay, thank you everyone for hearing that complaint. We will now be moving on to the complaint being 4/22/2025. William Wansford versus Vernon Lumpkin, Donald Burt, Simon Thompson, Nevian Marcos, Kate Lawson, Remy Martin, Tanya Blantari, Moti Gelato. Okay.
Nice to represent everyone. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, you can represent everyone. I do have a statement from Tanya that I think she wanted me to read. I have to pull it up really quickly. I'm just gonna do roll calls really quick. Wait, actually, let me pull that up first. Okay. Do we have Wansford here?
Yes.
Okay. Do we have Vernon? Sonal, I think, is on Zoom.
Here.
Simon. Neviat is Kate, I think, is on Zoom.
Yes, I'm here.
Okay. Remy, we have, okay, fine. Tanya, I have her statement, and I do have to read that. And then Moti, okay, that's fine. We're gonna start with the complainant's open statement, or yeah.
Hi, my name is Will. I made this complaint because I was concerned with unfair soliciting of residents in our residence halls here on campus. I'd like to note that I think that this complaint should be directed towards Vernon and Remy primarily, because on the flyer that they distributed, their names were bolded, their faces were on it, and pretty sure that they were the ones who were distributing the flyers and that the others who were included on the flyer were not aware that they were put on it. Anyway, so they were spread through Oak Hall, which is the hall I live in, so I saw them there. I took photos of the ones that were on my floor, plus I went down to lower floors and saw them there as well. I took photos of those. I talked to friends who live in Manhall, they also received flyers and can testify to that. And then also Willow Hall. I think that this violation that was committed is honestly made more severe by including other people's names on the flyer that they distributed, considering that it's not just putting yourself in harm's way of being in violation of the EEP, but putting other people in the way of like their spot in the election getting a violation. And then, I mean, others that were on the flyer, they still could get benefit from the flyer being distributed, but it wasn't like their intention. They weren't aware of that it being put out there. It's just workable. And so I don't really want to hold them responsible for that. But the specific section in the EAS or EPP that this violation violates is section 6, part E, part 5. Under campaigning, that states that no candidate, candidate's affiliate, ballot measure advocate, or ballot measures advocate affiliate may, in the course of campaigning, violate the facility services policy, the residence hall solicitation policy, any UW IT policies, or the UW policies or laws, including the improper posting of campaign signage. I feel like this violation of flyers that are put under student stores who are living in our on-campus residence halls clearly violates that policy. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for that opening statement. Now we'll be hearing from the respondent, their opening statement.
Yeah, so just to clarify everything, I was the one that made and distributed the flyers with friends that I have living in all 3 of those halls last year. I definitely did not read the EPP to its full extent, and I thought I remember something similar going on last year and thought I excused it as well. So I didn't think it was that big of an issue. I want to apologize to all the people that were listed, as well as the people that were on the flyer for endangering their campaigns, as well as the people off the flyer for potentially creating an unjust election. Kind of speaking to each of those points, not much I could do to rectify it. You guys, I just really liked your campaigns with you guys at forums, so that was endorsing you guys, and to the people that I am unfairly creating a disadvantage for. If you want me to do the math, I can. I probably personally texted like 200 people, talked to that many people. I got 270 votes. So supposedly 70 some came from that. If you want to look at the election results for the 2 candidates on the form that actually won, they were in the majority of votes. They would have made it to the final stage, and then both of them won by 500 more votes. So if you think that it would have impacted me the most, then I guess it wouldn't impact the final results of the election. Yeah, that's basically it. I accept whatever the largest penalty is.
Thank you for that. I am not gonna read out her entire statement. It's quite it's a little bit lengthy, but there's also a bit of in there. I'm just gonna summarize it. Everyone can see it if they would like to read it. To basically just this is Tanya's statement, sorry. And she's basically just saying that you like you said that was not like we had no involvement. For this. So now we will be going back to Will and do any additional evidence of the city likes bring up. Okay, thank you. Any additional evidence since we also have screenshot. Yeah. Yeah. Anything else from on Zoom either? Okay. Any questions from the committee?
Can you clarify which dorms were you talking about again, or which? I guess this was for either. How many votes were these distributed?
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Okay. Closing statement from our conference.
I'd just like to emphasize that Oak Hall has 380 residents, Willow Hall has 565 residents, and Manhall has over 1,000 residents, which totals to almost 2,000 residents that were solicited. I mean, it had not that much impact on the elections results, but even like one of those flyers can put on the board a violation of that section of the EPP or EPP. So just a large number of students that were solicited.
Yeah, thank you. Any closing statement from our respondent? Okay.
I mean, I will say, Vernon has already talked about the responsibility bit of it. But I also want to echo Will's point, as long as I'm up here. He brings up a really good point that reached a lot of students. And I want to bring up the hypothetical question that's all not really that hypothetical of what if this was done for every student that lived on campus. So, you know, just bringing up what we discussed at our last Judicial Committee a little bit, you know, endorsements for everyone that lives on campus. You know, reaching that many students kind of crazy.
Yes, especially considering our CSA endorsement. I could see how this was seemingly like loud, considering that they had more complex flyer distributed. If I didn't read the APP, then I would have thought it was allowed too. But yeah, just echoing what they said, I didn't think this was going to be distributed. I didn't know until I got a complaint by email that it was out, and I appreciate the
Yeah. And okay, awesome. That was great. We are done with that complaint. Thank you, everyone. We are now on to our last complaint. Okay. This next complaint is named 4/27/2025. Ria Doreha versus Vernon Lumsden, Sonal Burke, Simon Thompson, Eviat Marcos, Kate Lawson, Remy Martin, Tanya Bandari, Moti Galato. Okay, I will do roll call again. After I pull that up. Oh, sorry, is that 20? Yeah. Oh, that was just 20, but this is 27. Well, the folder, the sticker. Oh, yeah, okay. Sorry about that. Okay, do we have Ria here? Yes. Do we have Vernon? Okay, Sonal on Zoom, Simon, Nebiat, Kate on Zoom, Remy, no, okay. Tanya not here, and Moti not here. Okay, awesome. We will be hearing our opening statement from our complainant.
It's the same complaint as last one. I just want to reiterate that even though our state's a good one, I think they had permission from HFS, so it's very different places. And also, I made sure in the ethics seminar on multiple emails that I remind the candidates that please submit the materials on the official advertisement registry. None of them did so until I told them that this is what happens when you do your website. Please this as a reminder for everyone to please submit it so that you guys are aware. So if I see something like that, I give it to my before this happens. Thank you. Okay, thank you. Now we'll be hearing our opening statement if you guys would like. From the
Just wanted to thank you guys for hosting the election. I guess this is probably incredibly disrespectful. Did not mean it that way. Next time, probably not gonna be next time, but I would submit it. What was the last thing? Oh yeah, would that, like a side tangent, would that technically not be qualified as material?
What?
Like, am I
Wait,
not allowed to put their names on my material?
we're not doing cross policy. Thank you. We'll be moving on back to our complainants. Is there any additional evidence or witnesses you'd like to bring up?
Now I just want to say that even though it didn't impact that much, it was still went up like I think 1,500 residents. And I think it's a huge number. So just to keep in that, and I also agree that except one and Remy, none of them had any idea what's happening. So yeah. So, thank you, Francis.
Yeah, as a McMahon resident, I was kind of shocked to see that under my door when I woke up, whatever morning that was. But yeah, the concern about like how it was still seen by students, and we have to turn out numbers for each hall, but we don't know how they voted in those places. But yeah, the sense that this was unsolicited based on like HFS solicitation policy, as it's clearly stated, that was our greatest concern as part of the ASU, like the unfair distribution of campaign resources within halls, which were not technically like wanted by students.
Yeah, thank you. Any additional evidence or respondents? Okay. closing remarks from our closing statement from our complainant? Oh, wait, question. Actually, I have a question. So was this sent, was this put under every single door in those 3 buildings?
No, I gave some to my previous each from, and I was there for some of it, but there were, I think, for Oak, it was all because that was where we started. And then in Willow, I had a friend we did their floor and the McMahon was kind of floors.
Okay.
I didn't want to, yeah, it was also like because McMahon is built the way it is, it was like, because I got the 2.
Okay.
So like I saw it and I picked it up and like none of the other 7 roommates in my cluster saw it. I'm sorry for it. But like just like if one person saw it and like picked it up,
yeah,
it's hard to tell how many people actually saw it.
Yeah, thank you. No, we appreciate that clarification. Any questions in the committee? Okay, now we're gonna do closing statement.
I just want to remind people that I have made it very clear that if you have questions about anything, come to me. If you have anything, please come to us. We will tell you that's not how we do it. So just keep that in check if you guys want to to like come and talk to me if you got something like that. So none of us is supposed to be here. Okay, thank you.
Okay, any closing remarks from this one? Rebuttal. Okay, that is it for all of our complaints. Thank you so much, everyone, for everything during both hearings. We will now be moving into executive session. And you will all be informed of the judgments and penalties at a board meeting. And we will notify you of which board meeting when we are done. So, yes. This meeting is over there. Yes. No, it's optional. You can if you would like to. We are going to executive session right now. Yes. So goodbye. No. Okay. Make sure to keep this. Yeah. No, we're taking a break. That went way. Thank you guys so much.
Just a second, I need to turn off recording.